Alright, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to some old school RuneScape. Oh man, we've got some juicy stuff to talk about this morning. How are you guys doing? It's been a while, I know, since I've made a video. About 2 weeks again. There's been a lot of updates I've missed. Like, I had some sort of Isle of Souls. There's like a new mini game. I got a lot to catch up on, but first, we got to talk about this equipment rebalancing stuff, dude. It's off the rails at this point. Jagex is they're losing it, bro. It's kind of out of control. So we've got a lot to talk about with that. A lot of Reddit circle jerking and things like that. So we're gonna switch over here. I'm just fishing some sharks in the background because it's I don't know what else to do. I haven't played this game in months. I haven't played this game since the Trailblazer League ended for sure. But even so before that, because I didn't even finish the Trailblazer League. Anyway. That's not important. What is important? Also, don't don't pay attention to all my freaking RuneScape news tabs I have open. So the main equipment rebalancing proposal happened a little bit before January 26th. So a couple of weeks ago now. I made a video on it because it was a big deal. And since then, a lot of things have come up. So obviously, the biggest thing here is the blowpipe. The blowpipe is the biggest drawback to these changes that everyone is like super against. So last week, a couple weeks now, when this first came out, they released the first iteration of their proposed plans to tackle the equipment rebalancing changes, which was gonna benefit the game's long-term health. Which I just want to state my opinion real quick here. I do think these changes are necessary only because to increase the longevity of the game, right? Because as of right now, there is a problem with some of this stuff. Power creep, or however you want to look at it, is a problem. There's just not enough room anymore to add new content, to add new variety, because anytime it is, it's just immediately trounced by the blowpipe. Now, sure, maybe they could just add a weapon better than the blowpipe, and then just forever continue to increase the new weapons they release to be better than the previous. However, that's going to make content in the game now much more easy. So that's really not a possibility in that front. So their only real option here is to nerf. So they released some beta worlds to test some of this stuff, which I unfortunately missed because I've looked through the worlds now and I could not find them. But basically they released a couple worlds to allow you to test some of these new items. So the Toxic Blowpipe, the Crystal Armor, and the Black D'hide Armor. I guess those are the three biggest changes. Now we'll get into it a little bit, but some of the changes that they had proposed, they basically took back because they weren't necessary. Sounds like it would have been cool though, because you could they included the Inferno and they gave you like chests, so you could just like get all the gear and try it out. So I'm really sad that I missed that. But anyway, the Toxic Blowpipe. This is what we're gonna mainly be talking about today. There are gonna be some other things, but I want to mainly just kind of go over some of the backlash that Jagex has received and some of the things that have happened just a couple days ago that is kind of insane. So we'll get to that. Don't worry. We'll get to that. Let's talk about the blowpipe. So obviously the blowpipe changes have been the most prominent, which is to be expected given it's the most widely and used weapons in the game. So of course, this is going to have a little bit of a backlash. So obviously, the number of players felt proposed changes to the Toxic Blowpipe were too harsh. Many of you said they would make current content too difficult, i.e. the Inferno. Some would say that the Inferno is based around the Toxic Blowpipe because not a lot of players, if most players, don't have a twisted bow. So they're not going to be able to, more effectively do that with the Toxic Blowpipe nerf. So now, obviously, they included the Inferno in those beta worlds. Ah, frick. Don't look at my dang pin. Alright, anyway, as I was saying, so it's no secret that the Toxic Blowpipe is strong. One of the reasons why it gets used by almost every player in any situation where range damage is preferable. Even at times when it's not, it still outperforms some of the most expensive items. Probably like the St. Guesti staff, maybe? Or what's another like ranged item? I guess like any crossbow. Armadillo crossbow, the Dragon Hunter crossbow, any of those. Even sometimes a twisted bow in ideas where mage defense is not prioritized because the twisted bow has the damage boost against magic defense. So if that's kind of what Jagex is trying to get at here, is that the twisted bow is fine because it only works well in certain situations for the most part. The Toxic Blowpipe is good in pretty much any situation. So there's little reason to use any other weapon if ranged attacks are an option. This is very true, and this is what I'm thinking, or why I think this is a problem that needs to be addressed. I just think Jagex is going at it completely wrong. Big surprise. Adding this lack of variety, it's also difficult for us to effectively balance around its strength. Its high attack speed means it benefits hugely from additional range strength and accuracy, unlike the Twisted Bow, which only is mainly beneficial. Obviously, the Twisted Bow is one of the best, if not the technical best ranged weapon in the game, but it's only most effective against enemies or bosses that have a lower mage defense, i.e. Bandos, right? Bandos and some of the wilderness bosses, especially. The Toxic Blowpipe, easier to get because Zulrah, not raids, and essentially more versatile and better in nearly every situation. So there is a very clear, problem here with that. Now, obviously, you could say, well, it's an in-game item. Of course, it's strong. Sure, but it shouldn't be stronger than, or more feasible to use than the literal best bow in the game. So, this leaves us little room for adding new ranged items with strength and accuracy, as if they only made things better than the previous items, earlier content would become much, much easier. So in its current form, the Blowpipe's also far too cheap to purchase. That doesn't affect me because, hardcore Ironman, but for the average player, it's much easier to buy. The Twisted Bow is like the most expensive item in the game, next to the Ellie. It's like 1 point some bill. The Toxic Blowpipe is a couple $100K, maybe a couple mil, not a bill. The fact that there's even an item in old school RuneScape that's worth 1 billion coins blows my mind, but that's neither here nor there. So taking that all into account, they've made some changes that we feel the Toxic Blowpipe is in a much healthier position. Our intention remains for the Blowpipe to remain a very powerful weapon against low defense creatures, but to limit its power against higher defense creatures so that, for example, the Toxic Blowpipe can actually be useful. So, what they've done is they've added 100% accuracy to the special attack. And what they've mainly done here is change the dart strength. So adamant darts are increased from 8 to 10, rune darts 14 to 20, and dragon darts 20 to 28. So the Blowpipe, yes, is getting nerfed. However, the darts you use are getting buffed. Now, it looks like this is only for these 3 tiers. I don't know if Mithril and below will be buffed. I'm assuming it's because these are the 3 most used types of darts. Although I would think, especially for Ironman, Mithril darts would still be a big use. But so here's the above changes, reduces of the impact of the Blowpipe nerf, and they remain in line with their original intentions. So low defense monsters are what they're saying the Blowpipe is going to be most useful against. So here's some items for nerds, numbers for nerds. This is what the Toxic Blowpipe charged, and this is what they're going to change it to. So the attack goes almost cut literally in half. The range strength also almost in half. So it's not just a little nerf. It's big. So there was a lot of confusion surrounding the impact of the initial changes because they didn't do squat. They didn't explain nothing to us. Many players claim thanks to the base stat changes they amounted to 50% nerf, which, it does a little on that. They could have done a better job reflecting how these changes impacted the overall range, accuracy, and strength. Yeah, no freaking kidding. So here are the tables that compare all of the darts. So this is the Toxic Blowpipe plus a bronze dart. So in-game accuracy is 63. It's going to be down to 32. That's with the Blowpipe. So the strength... Wait, hold on. So these are buffed, but the lower ones are nerfed? How does that make any sense? So why would you be... Okay, so I guess they're saying if I think because what one of the main things I think they talk about here in a second is bronze darts with the Toxic Blowpipe are better than most ranged weapons in the game. So since bronze darts are so easy to obtain, they're being nerfed? I don't know. There's a clear difference between the new and old versions, even with the most expensive to use darts having been slightly nerfed. This is intentional. We're not simply making it more expensive to upkeep, as that is only part of the problem. So how much will these changes impact you in game? Well, 0, because I don't have a Blowpipe. Alright, I'm kidding. Obviously, this is a big deal for most of the player base because, literally, the Blowpipe, and millions of people, not millions, but you know what I mean. Every other player that's, actually good at the game probably has a Blowpipe. So this is going to affect them, especially considering it's our best weapon in the game. It's just, I don't know. The way that Jagex is going about it is not great, but that's normal. Alright, so here's another little graphic for all you number crunchers out there. So that the Twisted Bow, here's just some examples of other ranged weapons and what they would do against certain monsters, proposed with the DPS nerf of the Blowpipe, and the different darts it uses. So there's obviously a very clear difference here in some things, and I mean, it's gonna be rough, dude. The difference in raw DPS output is much smaller when facing low defense creatures. They're really trying to emphasize that because they want you to know that if you're still fighting, you know, shrimpy little monster dudes, it's going to still outperform, for example, the armored crossbow, even when using adamant darts, again, only against these low defense creatures. Using higher tier darts like Rune and Dragon, which nobody ever does, well, at least if you're an Iron Man, it closes the gap in DPS significantly in comparison to cheaper darts, so adamant and below. So the DPS output is much bigger when facing higher defense creatures where you would more typically want to use something like, for example, the Twisted Bow. Or if you're facing maybe Vorkath, you'd probably want to use the Dragon Hunter crossbow, so on and so forth. I have no idea what in-game content is like because I'm terrible at this game. So by focusing on more of a monster's defense, these changes leave us to a much better position to balance future content around range damage. You know what else they could do? Is they could just not release a boss that's like a ranged boss. They could just also just stop making content that other people like and only make skilling content because that's the only content I can play. So then they finally go into talking about the Twisted Bow because they've had many players asking what they meant when they said they were generally happy with where the Twisted Bow sits. So because the higher the target's magic level or magic accuracy, like I was saying earlier, the higher the Twisted Bow's accuracy and damage becomes. So the Twisted Bow gets better depending on the creature you're fighting. Not only is it already quite literally the best bow or ranged weapon in the game, it will become better depending on the enemy you're facing. So if they want to introduce a new boss that's not susceptible to the Twisted Bow, they would just, you know, lower its magic level or reduce its magic accuracy stats. So changing that has zero impact on other ranged weapons. The Blowpipe is still the best freaking ranged weapon basically in the game. So with these proposed changes to the Toxic Blowpipe, there's still a clear gap to fill for a ranged weapon that excels against higher defense creatures, because once they nerf this, there's going to be a huge gap in between the Toxic Blowpipe and the Twisted Bow. So they're intending to increase the damage bonus offered with the full Crystal Armor set from 15 to 20%. That's great and all, but the Crystal Armor set is very, very late game, and not only that, I've seen very few players with the full Crystal Armor set, and it's been, you know, Song of the Elves and like Prif has been in the game for quite a while now. It's just such a hard and sought after armor set that I feel like this is such a minuscule update because nobody really has this armor set anyway. So again, even they say we know that even this buff does not compete enough to be considered a replacement to the Blowpipe, obviously. So they've discussed increasing the damage and accuracy of the crystal armor even further, but they'd have to go huge on the numbers. So like from 40% damage and 50% accuracy instead of 20% and 30% respectively, which is a huge bonus. And that would in turn lead us into the problem of a T70. Ooh, they dropped a RuneScape 3 word. T70 range weapon being stronger than its requirement. So that just literally means a level 70 range weapon being stronger. So like the Blowpipe would be way superior to the crystal armor. I don't know why they put it like that, but even considering requiring crystal shards to maintain. Another popular suggestion was to split the Toxic Blowpipe into multiple versions. The newly proposed Blowpipe and another created by adding an attachment or upgrade to restore it to its current state. So similar to Barrow's armor, how it breaks after a certain amount of uses, or maybe even the Abyssal Tentacle, how after a certain amount of uses it breaks. There's many different ways that could have gone, and they even say that they had thought about this initially when they first started our work on the equipment rebalancing changes, but despite the increased expense, they'd still ultimately be left in the same place as they are now, eventually. That's what I was said earlier in this video. If they don't take care of this now, they might as well do it now while we're already talking about it, everyone's already upset, might as well just do it, because they keep backing out of it, which we'll get into earlier. They need to just do it, because it's going to happen no matter what. Eventually, this is going to just spiral out of control, and we're going to be back in the same exact position. So if they don't do something now, I know it's not the popular choice, and people might even be upset with me about that. Don't dislike the video, though. I'm just out here trying to make a living. You know, so I don't know. I think it's necessary, but it's going to suck no matter what. Sure, you could say maybe I'm okay with these changes more so because they don't really affect me too much, but it will. I mean, you could say it affects me more because I didn't get the years of this super advanced Blowpipe, you know? So, I don't know. It's pros and cons, bro. Pros and cons. Alright, so just finishing up here, they do talk about adding some of these buffs to maybe something like the Crystal Bow, which is a weapon I think is often overlooked, and one of my I remember when the Crystal Bow was like, you know, the be-all, end-all, or just a different weapon entirely in the future. Obviously, they're happy for suggestions, maybe another unique to the Gauntlet, to upgrade the Crystal Bow, like a kit maybe, like, you know, they did with the Gmaul, or things like that. Should the current blowpipe remain as it is, but with a potentially higher cost upgrade. So they're still exploring options, but whether or not they do it is going to be up to them. So this brought in the cause of, like, you know, personal bests. In our initial proposal, they didn't even say anything about it for, like, you know, personal bests for boss kill times and the Gauntlet and the Inferno. So given the changes they're proposing, they had a couple of ideas. Reset all current personal best kill times, making everyone start fresh. That sounds so stupid. Why? That sounds garbage. Don't do that. Store all current personal best kill times and mark them as pre-balance. That also sounds dumb, just because it kind of like puts a weird tinge on the game world. What do you mean pre-balance? That's breaking the fourth wall. Don't do that either. Leave them. Leave all the current personal best times as they are. Just don't mess with it. I'm pretty sure as we go on to the next blog, they'll say that. But like I said, I'm just a little behind here. So aside from that, the upcoming combat achievements update, it's going to be a mess, especially with this rebalancing thing happening. So given the nature of this, and again, taking into account that these previous speeds may not be obtainable again for some time, they're going to just leave them, I'm pretty sure, such as the Gauntlet. And then finally, the Net's Not Face Guard. Many of us felt that our proposed change would render the Net's Not Face Guard obsolete, and that the reduction in strength was not necessary, which, I mean, pretty true considering it's late game, and the Net's Not, like, helmet in general has been pretty much the best helmet you could use, aside from, like, you know, if you were using Elite Void, or maybe the Serpentine helmet for other certain things, or, you know, there's always different variations, but in general, the Net's Not helm and face guard are considered the most standard, best in slot helmet. So they wanted to nerf it too. I don't freaking know why, because they wanted to nerf everything that we have and love, and this is why we can't have nice things. So, but they're not going to go ahead with this change, meaning the face guard will remain as it currently is. There was enough backlash about that because there was unnecessary changes that needed to be made. So what they're going to do is revisit their proposed changes to the Basilisk Knights, which are the enemies that drop the helmet, and the Basilisk Sentinels. So they're going to change the enemies to make them difficult or more difficult or easier to kill. So they're currently considering keeping the Knights as they are, leaving them as a relatively easy, long, and AFK task, while introducing a newer, slightly more difficult with a better drop rate of the Basilisk Jaw. So that's interesting. I like how they did that. That was a good compromise. So that's interesting. Now the Dragonhide armor, this was another big one because the Dragonhide armor in general is a very basic ranged armor, if not the most used. Like, obviously you have the leather and studded leather before, so, but you're hardly ever on that range level to make that a mainstay armor. The Dragonhide is the biggest piece of ranged equipment next to maybe Void. So they mentioned the changes to the armor due to its imbalanced stat distribution, which is emphasized within PvP situations. I feel like this is just Jagex trying to appease the PvP community, because they never do, and there's always clear outrage for that fact, so I think that might just be what they're kind of trying to do here. Similar to Din's Bulwark, which is even more ridiculous. But many of us were upset that they're making changes to the items that have existed in their current form for many years. In the old school RuneScape, there was never a problem with the Dragonhide. It was not an easy decision to make, but we do feel it's best for the longevity of the game, and will provide a welcome change to the PvP meta. Yeah, okay, Jagex. Whatever you say, bro. So here's a bunch of numbers. All of the proposed stats are down here, and the current stats are here. So everything gets reduced. With both Crystal and Carol's armor-based stats being kept as they are, they naturally become a more expensive alternative to help fill the gap left by the changes. So now, Carol's armor is maybe not going to be so useless, considering we only ever use like the top and maybe the skirt and the crossbow on certain occasions. Now the whole armor set's going to be much more beneficial because it's actually going to be, you know, good, considering Dragonhide is now trash. And then similar to Din's Bulwark, we agree that the big shields retain high defense capabilities, but even with its previous stats, it was saw very little use in game outside of PvP. So like similar to the Dragonhide changes, I think this is mostly just to appease the PvP players, which is fine. They never get enough love, but I also could care less. So like I said, I missed the 2 beta worlds, which is fine. But they've prioritized including the blowpipe, and I think a lot of these changes didn't go over very well, and I'm going to show you why. Okay, so I promised not to ramble very long. We're almost done here. I just want to show you this. So this was the last blog about equipment rebalancing that they released. This was a couple of days ago. It's February 11th today. This was 2 days ago. 3 days ago. 9, 10, 11. I know math. We'd like to thank you all for our feedback since releasing the first blog. Great. We're confident that the changes in this blog and previous iterations have reached the right balance between reacting to addressable feedback and staying true to our reasons for this update. Okay, just remember that, okay? That means that the changes will be made live in this week's game update on February 10th, which was yesterday. Well, wait a minute. There was no game update yesterday. What do you mean? Did I miss it? Did they just secretly stealth it into the game? Is everything ruined? We'll be closely monitoring the impact of the changes as well as our ongoing feedback. They're ready to react quickly. Dope. Let's look at the changes that they went through with. So we want a Blessed Dragonhide to retain the stats it has in its game, making it suitable cost-effective upgrade from Black Dragonhide. So the Black Dragonhide and below getting nerfed. Blessed Dragonhide is being excluded. So all of its variants are okay. So just regular Dragonhide, which is fine. Blessed Dragonhide is harder to obtain, obviously from like clue scrolls, but that's okay. You felt that even with the increased range defense added to Din's Bulwark, it would not be strong enough to defend against others in PvP situations. So they're going to make these changes. They're going to reduce the negative magic defense, continue with 25% reduction to melee defense bonuses, and increase its range defense. We don't want personal best kills times to be reset, giving many of them are achieved without using the items being charged as part of the equipment, or being changed rather, so they're not going to reset the personal best kill times, which is great. I knew they wouldn't because it just didn't make any sense, and actually I think I might have read that ahead, so oopsie. Alright, and then finally we have just a couple more here. We were concerned, mid-level players specifically were concerned with over how impactful the change to the Toxic Blowpipe will be compared to max players, and all they said was, we will provide more information. Oh, great. We were concerned that many existing activities in the game will be made unnecessarily longer, i.e. Inferno, after the equipment rebalancing changes are live and we've allowed time for the dust to settle, aka everyone has stopped flipping the frick out. It's clear that new suitable methods have not been developed, obviously, and they're going to make changes to the NPCs wherever necessary. They're already aware of some that require some stat adjustments, Lizardmen Shamans, and someone in a raid. I don't know about Lizardmen Shamans. I guess even with the Shizen armor, they're still way too difficult to obtain or to kill without a blowpipe. So that's interesting. They're already finding things that need to be changed. You feel like we've ignored a lot of the feedback that was given as a result of the beta test worlds we opened. They used our feedback from the beta to help shape their recent changes for the Dragonhide and Din's Bulwark. That's it! All of that testing, we didn't feel like the feedback received regarding the Toxic Blowpipe provided further adjustments? What? Then why did you give us the chance, bro? And then finally, you'd like to know more about our plans for introducing new rewards. Without any Rune Fest, we haven't been able to communicate because of, obviously, the pandemic. So that's crazy. Here's some stuff about Lizardmen Shamans. Apparently, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting. Vorkath obviously had some interesting going-ons with the Dragon Hunter crossbow and all of that. Our intention is for the Blowpipe to remain a very powerful weapon against low defense creatures, but to limit its power against higher defense creatures. Yeah, okay. So that's all of the big news. But there's one last thing I want to end this video on. Remember what they said at the beginning? Look at this. It's been postponed, as of 2 days ago. We know you have a lot of questions, but here's the key information. We're going to postpone the equipment rebalance changes. What? What? Wait. The best move for us right now is to take the time to conduct additional analysis. Continue to iterate on the design and work further on how we implement it. We still believe what we're trying to achieve with the rebalance, and we strongly believe that the important unpolled game... So they're still going to do this unpolled. They're not going to poll, even after all of this. The streams, the blogs, the tests, nothing. They don't care what you have to say. Not that they ever don't. Obviously, Jagex will poll, and, they'll get our opinions on things, and they'll at least, ask us. And they have asked us, and we have given them our feedback, and they're still going to do it. Because it's necessary, and I get that. They're just... I don't know why they keep giving us these options. Now they're postponing it. So it hasn't gone unnoticed that even supporters of the rebalance, so even people that were for it, like me, wanted a better understanding of future game content because they haven't said anything. So to understand what was coming to fill the gap, they're going to change it and not update the game for this week. So, they've made no secret of the fact that they're planning to make these changes before the release of Combat Achievements, which is coming out very soon. We believe that it would be a mistake to release the Combat Achievements before the rebalance, obviously. So, they're postponing that release too. The achievements would inevitably become harder after the Blowpipe nerf, and many of us said that it would feel incredibly unfair to change the difficulty of those accomplishments, and that would apply to that. So, they're not making any game update yesterday. The next update will be on the Wednesday, February 17th, when you can expect to be monkeying around with the old school 8th birthday holiday event. And you'll be able to explore Wild Varrock. Oh yeah, they're updating Last Man Standing. So they're still doing things, and a sneak peek at what lies below Ice Mountain. Maybe a new dungeon, maybe a new quest. Who knows? So this has been a major mess. Reddit went to, basically, I don't exactly know what happened. I don't really frequent Reddit too much. I try to avoid it like the plague. But on Twitter, I know they were not happy because apparently a bunch of Redditors convinced mods and maybe Jagex in itself, obviously, to go against this. They were going to do this. But then Reddit was like, yo, let's not, because it all sucks. What do you guys think about these updates? I know most of you are probably against them. I understand. It sucks. It does suck. But I do think it's necessary. Did they go about it wrong? Probably. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for sticking around. We're basically at 300 subscribers. I know I haven't been uploading frequently. I'm trying so hard to get back into frequent uploads. I'm now fully basically working at home, so I have much more time to do so now. I'm just still dealing with balancing everything right now because a lot has changed in my life very quickly. But I'm getting there. So thank you guys for being patient with me and sticking around even when I have not been very active. I promise I used to upload daily, and I will get back to that schedule very soon. Thank you guys again for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Leave me a like if you want. Subscribe. Making my dream come true. But until next time, boys and girls, sorry for the long video. If you watched the whole thing, I love you. Bye!